Welcome to A Course in Miracles, text chapter 20, the new beginning. And tonight we wrap up chapter 30, the pre-ultimate chapter. We finish next week with the whole curriculum. And so, having gone through the whole Course in Miracles, we now get to that, as we said before, from the mid-20s, we go into complete non-dual understanding. And yes, there are some community groups that don't appreciate the word non-duality. They believe that A Course in Miracles is a standalone learning modality or path. And I say there's nothing further from the truth than thinking anything stands on its own and has to be applied in a specific way. Ultimately, the Course is very clear in its non-dual context. And ultimately, God is the only thing that exists. And God is eternal extension. And that eternal extension is called the sonship. One of better word, we are still applying concepts. The truth remains that no one here on this earth will fully know what God is, although we will not only get glimpses as we travel down the inward path to self-realization, but we do get to that bridge consciousness, a new earth, or the real world, as it's often called in the Course, where we start to experience the peace of God that transcends understanding into the knowing. And even those words I've just used, as you move deeper and deeper into the dual space, there is nothing to transcend. There is no one to transcend. There is no one. There is no thing. In essence, there's only the essence of God, the all eternal, the ever expanding essence, which is peace, which is joy. We like to say the word love, but we don't really know what love is. The closest we get to love in this world is the unconditional acceptance of another, the realization of our shared being, the realization that the very essence of what we are is a silent peace. And as we abide knowingly in that, and again, there's no one to know, it's the knowing of, then we become that all-encompassing peace. We don't even experience something because there is no experiencer in the non-dual space. There's nothing to experience but the experience itself. So there is nothing, and yet there is everything. And it sounds paradoxical, but only in illusions can there be a paradox that could be true. Paradoxes, in all other respects, try and give two versions of the same truth, but ultimately, on a non-dual sphere, only truth is true. And what is truth? It's the silent stillness. That's the closest as we get to it. And I'm giving you an interpretation of my non-dual understanding. And that's exactly what this chapter is, open to one's own reference in terms of how you interpret it. But ultimately, there's only one interpretation. God is love. Love is God, the end. And so let's look at it from a non-dual Course perspective. And it starts off with a very, very important question. So if God is all there is, and God is source, and God is our creator, the creator of the essence of what we are, would God have left the meaning of the world to your own interpretation? If you've made the world through your forgetfulness, how could God leave it up to you to use the world to figure out what it's for? So he's given you a memory. Within you is the memory of God, Holy Spirit, for want of another word, because you are spirit and it's your Holy Spirit. So your Holy Spirit contains the memory of God. It's never left it, never lost it, can't be lost. It can't be attained. It is everything you are, just temporarily hidden by the veil of forgetfulness. As you fell asleep, forgot you were dreaming, dreamt up this elaborate dream where you forgot not to laugh. And yet the very dreamer which is the essence, the extension essence of God, cannot ever change or forget. It's just veiled through taking the dream seriously and forgetting he's the dreamer, not the dream content. If he had, it has no meaning. Because if he left it up to us, we wouldn't figure it out. For it cannot be that meaning changes constantly. And if you think of the world, it's continuously changing. And so if it's continuously changing, it changes constantly, yet it is true. So it cannot be that meaning changes constantly, yet it's true. Of course, there has to be meaning to something. What does it mean? But definitely not in the world of duality, the world of dreams. There is no meaning here. It is dream. The only thing it means is you're asleep. You've dreamt it up. The Holy Spirit looks, so the memory of God, Holy Spirit, within you as your true spirit, as your true self, looks upon the world as with one purpose, changelessly established. The world only has one purpose, and it serves to be a reminder to the Son of God as an echo for the truth of what you really are. And no situation can affect its aim, but must be in accord with it. So every situation in this world is in accord with the Holy Spirit's purpose for you and the use of the world. And obviously the use of the world, we've gone through it many times in many different chapters. The world is given us so that we can realize what we are through the experience that we're not, and we can start to fully encompass what we are when we have nothing left to forgive. So the world is used as a forgiveness exercise so that we collectively, as one, the Holy Son of God, can awaken to the reality. What awakens? Does the individual body mind awaken? No, it dissolves. What remains? The essence. What is the essence? The memory, the spirit, that which is the extension of God, returning to the Christ mind. For only if its aim could change, the aim of the Holy Spirit or the aim of the world, with every situation, could each one be open to interpretation, which is different every time you think of it. So as you've gone through your different life stages and you've reevaluated what you think you are, so everything surrounding you changes with every time you reinterpret it from a learned experience. Of course, learning is really unlearning in true reality. You add an element into the script you write for every minute in the day. And all that happens now means something else. So we're continuously adding to the script that we've written. We're trying to take away from it. And so that means as we change, as we body minds change and seem to evolve, seem to become cleverer, more knowledgeable, more understanding. So the perception of what we are, so the effect changes. Obviously, the effect changes because as the perceiver, which is the projectionist of the world, changes, so the projection changes in accordance with the new belief of the observer, the body-mind. The observer at the body-mind as an observer, not the primary I am observer of its own dream. You take away another element and every meaning shifts accordingly. So think back on your life, what you believed about the world at the age of 10. Let's go in 10-year increments, 20, 30, 40. They keep changing based on your self-reflection, based on your understanding of what you are, or if you're trapped in illusions, based on how you appear. And so if it's trapped in illusions based on how you appear, you can imagine how radically the world seems to change for someone who lives 80, 90, 100 years. What do your scripts, what do your stories reflect except your plans for what the day should be? Remember, ultimately what you want the day to be is be happy. So your script is constantly adjusting based on you to what you believe it should be. And so it always becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, yet it can never really be upheld. So it fails. And then we get angry with God because we think God's taking something away from us. God is unaware of anything that we believe can be taken from us. God can only take the illusion away from our mind, but he's given us the free will to choose to do it. So in this world, there's an appearance of a free will, There is no such thing as free will. God's will is the only will there is. God's will is that his Son, which is an extension of himself, aligns his will with God's will. Therefore, the Son aligns in extension of God. Anything that the Son wills in contradiction or in any way different to God, who wills only unification, only unity, only atonement. So any localization willing something else, you may create it through law of attraction, because everything's always being attracted based on resonance, but it will fail you. And so the consequence of that is, and thus you judge disasters and success, advance, retreat, and gain and loss. And based on your judgment of it, the self-image starts to change, and therefore its perception changes of the world, not necessarily good. And what you can see in this world is people get older, they move into their 60s, 70s after retirement, they become brittle, they become rigid, they become really grumpy old people, because they've been so disillusioned with the world hasn't served them in the way they wished, it hasn't fulfilled their dreams, and they start to become bitter and resentment, and they hold and harbor, guilt, or they hold and harbor resentment or blame, and so they're just affecting themselves, and as a consequence, they seem to age faster and certainly suffer aging too. These judgments are all made in according to the roles the script assigns. Remember, you wrote the script. You are the dreaming mind. The fact they have no meaning in themselves is demonstrated by the ease with which these labels change with other judgments made on different aspects of experience. So as you experience the experiencer of the experience, as you start to shift your understanding of what you are, the world's understanding of the world shifts for you based on your understanding of what you are. So you can imagine, if you really see the world for a place to practice forgiveness, so that you finally have no mental tendencies, latent tendencies, mental images, mental habits that prevent you from being still and silent and peaceful, then it becomes a mirror. And you use the world as a mirror to say, okay, where is me? Where is this little separate self in terms of its thoughts, its ideas, its concepts, its beliefs? Because ultimately what we want to do, and that's ultimately the purpose of the world, is to align and be willing with God's will to let go of our body-mind appearance. Remember, it's the essence of it is still there. The essence is pure light, pure spirit. But appearing around and as a projection thereof is the body-mind, which is unreal. And so that's what we want to dissolve. We want to dissolve the association, the attachment to anything in the world, including the body-mind, and to become dispassionate about everything we see. And of course, that seems very dangerous to ego, because it means you're giving everything up. No, you're not. You're not giving anything up. You're letting go. You're dissolving illusions, and you're returning to the reality, which is your true self. And so through the experience, we then look back, and you think you see another meaning of what went before. And so you're constantly changing your mind based on your experience of going through something. And yet what you don't realize is you're actually just repeating the same lesson over and over again, just in the different appearances. What have you really done except to show there was no meaning? No matter how you search for meaning, there is actually nothing to search, and there is everything to be. And being means just being passionately, naturally yourself. Be authentic. Be transparent. But you assigned a meaning in the light of the goals that change, with every meaning shifting as they change. So if you've chosen that the meaning you wanted to be is constantly changing, so it changes for you, self-fulfilling. And yet only a constant purpose can endow events with stable meaning. But it must accord one meaning to them all. If they are given different meanings, it must mean that they reflect but different purposes. And obviously they are reflecting the different purposes of those who believe they're separate body minds. And yet that is the illusion, that is the makeup. And this is all the meaning they have. And can that be meaning? Can confusion be what meaning means? If you're confused, you're in the wrong mind. If you don't understand something, you've moved into the wrong mind. Ask to be shown. Ask to be shown, because the Holy Spirit will make it very clear for you and will distinguish for you the difference between illusion and reality. Perception cannot be in constant flux and make allowances for stability of any meaning yet. And yet we live on perceptions. We live on the projection of perceptions. And so there's never any stability in what it appears to project the world. There's definitely no purpose, and there's absolutely nothing to do but to transcend it. Fear is a judgment never satisfied. Its presence has no meaning, but to show you, you wrote a fearful script and are afraid accordingly, but not because the thing you fear has meaning in itself. It doesn't actually exist. It's just a temporal appearance, an illusionary temporal appearance. A common purpose. What's going on? A common purpose is the only means whereby perception can be stabilized, and one interpretation given to the world and all experiences here. And the one interpretation is you're asleep, practice forgiveness until you have no more desire and you're hanging on to nothing. And once you've let it all go, what next? Well, who wants to know? Once you've let it all go, the interpretation of this world is simply use it as a mirror to see that you have completely disrobed the garment of sin, fear, and guilt. In this shared purpose is one judgment shared by everyone and everything you see. You do not have to judge, for you have learned one meaning has been given everything, and you are glad to see it everywhere. So everything you look upon is an echo for the voice of God, for the essence of God. So be glad that you couldn't turn anything into a reality that cannot be changed back to truth. It cannot change because you would perceive it everywhere, unchanged by circumstance. And so you offer it to all events and then let them offer you stability. So what is it that you want? You want love, you want peace, you want joy, you want happiness? Well, offer it. The minute you offer it, you have it, because you can only have it if you're offering it, but you don't realize you're doing it. So practice offering of yourself, of your time, of your attention. Escape from judgment simply lies in this. All things have but one purpose, which you share with all the world, which you share with your awake mind, Christ mind, which your Christ mind shares with the essence of God. And nothing in the world can be opposed to it, for it belongs to everything as it belongs to you. Everything belongs to you. You're the dreamer. And so if it belongs to you, what are you searching for? Where, if all of it is you, if you've dreamt all of it up, where do you want to go? What do you want to find? What do you want to become? All you've got to do is undo. And the only way you undo is practice forgiveness until there's no attack thoughts. And when there's no attack thoughts, you will be silent within. You'll be empty. You'll be empty yet full. Empty of illusions, filled with spirit, filled with your Holy Spirit. And the understanding transcends into the knowing. You don't have to understand. You don't have to believe in anything. You simply then abide. In single purpose is the end of all ideas of sacrifice, giving up the world, which must assume a different purpose for the one who gains and him who loses. So the minute you've gained anything in this world, you think that if you change your vision, this will disappear. If you change your mind about the world, it will disappear. Things are things. All of it exists in consciousness, in the dreaming mind, as the dreaming mind exists in the mind of the dreamer. And as the mind of the dreamer, the essence of the dreamer, Christ, is the extension of God itself. There could be no thought of sacrifice apart from this idea. And it is this idea of different goals that makes perception shift and meanings change. Well, there's 8 billion ideas. One united goal, does this become, in one united goal, does this become impossible? For your agreement makes interpretation stabilize and last. How can communication really be established while the symbols that are used mean different things and used by 8 billion interpreters? And so we often, I have done it many a time, we get confused between consciousness, awareness. In the Course, consciousness is the realm of dreaming mind. Awareness is the realm of Christ mind and the awakened mind, right-minded thinking. In many different scriptures, they explain it in just other way around. In Avita, and depends on who's the teacher. And very often teachers throw that word awareness or consciousness around and very often mix them up. I've been great teachers like Eckhart Tolle. I've watched him, I've heard him get confused. Even Rupert Spira, who's for me one of the best non-dual teachers out there, often confuses the word consciousness or interchanges the word consciousness and awareness. In the Course, it specifically says the world of consciousness is the world of the dreaming, of the dreamer, and consciousness is that of the localization, since the whole thing is in the dreamer's mind. And yet the essence of all of it is awareness, and awareness is awake mind, because God is pure awareness, and yet fully conscious of self, of itself, himself. God is aware of God. Awareness is aware of awareness. Spirit is aware of spirit. Christ is aware of Christ. The Holy Spirit's goal, the memory of God's goal, gives one interpretation, meaningful to you and your brother. Thus can you communicate with him and he with you, because now it becomes an open channel of sharing understanding. In symbols that you both can understand, the sacrifice of the meaning is undone. All sacrifice entails the loss of your ability to see relationships amongst events, because everything is interconnected. And looked at separately, they have no meaning, because each individual being has no meaning. It's the collection that you realize it's like the entire world of man is like blood cells traveling through our arteries. It's one being. For there is no light by which they can be seen and understood. They have no purpose. So relationships have the function of showing us our mirrors. But what's the purpose of a mirror? There is none. There's no purpose of anything in this world because it's dreaming. The only purpose that exists, that truly exists, is the extension of the love of God. Because the purpose is the extension of the love of God, and we are the extension. But in the world of dreams, there's absolutely no meaning, there's absolutely no purpose. Yet handed over to the Holy Spirit uses our dream contents to return us to the awake Christ mind. And so since they have no purpose, and what they are cannot be seen, it appears to be seen by those who appear to be localizations. But the truth cannot be seen by the localization. And the localization of the dreaming characters cannot be known by truth. And that's why you have to take illusions to the truth. You take the shadows to the light. And as the shadow returns to the light or approaches the light, it dissolves. As the illusion approaches the truth, it dissolves. It doesn't get destroyed. You're not awakening to truth. The barrier, the illusion, the shadow, the veil, as you bring into the light, it dissolves, leaving only what has always been there. And it always will be. And there's no person, there's no being, there's not 8 billion of us. No one awakens to self in true reality. You let go of illusions and the self is always there. You're not awakening it. It's always there. If it wasn't, you'd be dead. If it wasn't, you'd go to sleep at night, you wouldn't wake up because in that space of dreamless sleep where there's no memory of you at all, there's no thinking happening, you don't dissolve. People would just die if that was the case. And no, you wake up in the morning, you've had dreamless sleep, you're still there. The reality of you can never be changed, no matter how much you dream of something else. In any thought of loss, is there no me? No one has agreed with you on what it means. You've made up your own mind as to what the illusion is. It is a part of a distorted script which cannot be interpreted with meaning. It must forever be unintelligible. It doesn't make any sense. Don't try and make sense of the illusion. Return to the silence and abide. Right-mindedness. So what's unintelligible cannot be communication. Your dark dreams, your dreams of yourself, your body, mind, and the world you see, are but senseless, isolated scripts you write in sleep. You wrote in your dream. Look not to separate dreams for meaning. Only dreams of pardon can be shared. Only dreams of forgiveness can be shared. They mean the same to both you and your brother. Do not interpret out of solitude. For what you see means nothing. The minute you try and analyze anything on its own, you'll miss it. And that's why if you really want to understand something, you've got to read it and you've got to cross-reference it against different opinions or different ways of looking at it for you to solidify your understanding. It will shift in what it stands for. And you will believe the world is an uncertain place in which you walk in danger and insert an uncertainty. And if that's what it is for you, that's what it will be for you. But it is your interpretations, which are lacking stability, for they are not in line with what you really are. What you really are is perfectly stable, perfectly unchanged, perfectly forever, the eternal extension of God, the love of God. You are the kingdom. Everything that appears to be in form, even this speaking to you, is just an appearance, and it lacks stability. It gets older, it gets sick, it dies. That's it. Or it seems to die. Nothing really dies. And the essence of it, once awake, returns to the Christ mind. If not, it returns again. It cycles through the ooze and reforms in order to reform and to remember and return to its essential nature, which means disrobe the garment, disrobe the illusion, and allow the essence to become all pervading. This is a state so seemingly unsafe that fear must ride. Do not continue with this. Continue thus, my brother. We have one interpreter, and that interpreter is the memory of God in us. That interpreter is the memory of peace, love, joy. And through the use of his symbols, we are joined, because the Holy Spirit's symbol is a circle. It's a unification of the fractured dreaming mind, so that they mean the same to all of us. Our common language lets us speak to all our brothers. And what is our common language? Forgiveness, understanding, acceptance, gratitude. And to understand with them, forgiveness has been given us all, and thus we can communicate again. You are free. Forgiveness sets us free. You've heard that plenty of times. What does it mean? Forgiveness can only truly be forgiven once you've understood that you created all of it and why it had to happen to you. So you surrender to what is out of total frustration and ask to be shown another way. And the minute you ask to be shown another way, like Helen and Bill, the voice came and directed them to heal their relationship. Let us stop there and do some questions.